The lighthouses of Cape Cod have saved hundreds of thousands of men and women, sailors, fishermen. To this day, these lighthouses still, remain as a beacon of hope for distressed sailors and wary fishermen trying to make their way home after weeks, days, months on the water. But before the lighthouses were ever on Cape Cod, there was a group of men and women that were called mooncussers. And they were modern day pirates. And they lived along the shorelines of here, Chatham, Wellfleet, Eastham. And the reason why is these are some of the roughest coastlines in this whole area, but especially for Cape Cod. And they would use lanterns. And just as a hunter has a sixth sense about like duck hunting or going out knowing that they have a good shot at getting their prey, these men and women, mostly men, just kind of knew when ships were going to be traversing bad weather and heading in this area. They'd sometimes get word too. Certain cargo ships were coming or whatnot. And they would use sometimes fires, but mostly lanterns. And they would break up into groups of 2 or 3 on each end of the coast of the beach or wherever they were. And they would signal a ship, and the ship would think it was some type of beacon heading them into a safe port. And what it was they were leading them into one of the bars, either the Chatham bar, which is out there, one of the breaks, and the ships would break apart. And they would, break apart and sink, or they would get stuck and then break apart slowly. And then these men would wait until morning light and go out and strip the ships of, salvage everything they could, all the cargo, all the wealth, anything they could get off the ship. They literally strip it down. And they were called mooncussers. They were modern day pirates. And it's a legend on the Cape. You can Google that, mooncussers. It's literally just for Cape Cod. It's like it didn't happen anywhere else in the world. It was a Cape Cod thing. They were modern day pirates. And the invention of the lighthouse is actually what kind of put them out of business. And when the lighthouses were first being proposed, the first lighthouse was being proposed in Eastham. A lot of the Eastham men were against it for that very reason. There were a lot of reputable, men too that were in the business of salvaging and whatnot. And, they weren't mooncussers, but they profited off of it. They made a profit off of it after everything was all said and done. So they didn't want the lighthouses either. And look at the marks in the sand. God, it's always so beautiful. It's like a giant puzzle. So yeah, mooncussers. And so there's another term too called wash ashore. Now, I wasn't born here. I've been here a long time, most of my life. At this point, most of my life. But I will always be a wash ashore. And is that a new flag? It's a new flag. The name wash ashore was the bodies would wash ashore after they would break apart on the bars and on the breaks. And so the townspeople would get up early, the constable and all the people from the congregation of whatever town it was. And they'd be like, well, we better get down and get all the wash ashores off the beach before everybody wakes up. And that's where that saying came from. That's why Dead Man's Cove is called Dead Man's Cove. Now it's got like 4 different names for 4 different beaches, but Up until the 1940s, it was called Dead Man's Cove. They changed it in the 1940s because it wasn't popular for tourism, and that's when tourism really started to kind of boom on the Cape, and it became a mecca. So they changed Dead Man's Cove to, 4 different beach names. But Dead Man's Cove still holds up for a lot of the old timers. Still call it that, fishermen and whatnot. Dead Man's Cove, they say, has seen over 30,000, something crazy amount of souls washed ashore in Dead Man's Cove. Because Dead Man's Cove is all out here. Chatham Bar, the breaks, Monomoy. Monomoy Point is just notorious for shipwrecks, even long after Mooncussers. But yeah, and so apparently, legend has it, for a long time they were living along the coastlines, like camping and living there. And what does that flag say? And apparently on full moons, when the moon was, really bright, legend has it, like, these guys were all swearing and cursing at the moon. And this woman, Molly Flanagan, yelled back at them and said, "Don't you be cussing at the moon." And that's where the term mooncusser came from, because all the dudes were cussing at the moon because it spoiled the sailors were able to see by the moonlight that they were being tricked. And hence the term mooncussers was born. And that is literally folklore and legend for Cape Cod. Mooncusser and wash ashore. And years ago, a very talented artist made a sign right here. And the sign says, caution, coyotes, mooncussers, coyotes, mooncussers lived here. It's kind of faded now, and this is all busted off. Oh, look, a key. Just in case you need to get in. Some lady donated this years ago, and these are words by Tom Petty from a song. I can't really get it all in my shot, but it's cool. Words by Tom Petty in memory of Janice DeGiorgio. But yeah, there you go, guys. It's story time. Mooncusters. And wash ashore. I will always be a wash ashore because I was not born here. I remember when I was first here, everyone would be like, you're a wash ashore. And I'd be like, what? I'd be like, I'm a mooncusser. Can you imagine that? You're just trying to get to shore and you see a lantern or fire, they would set fires too. God, what a horrible way to go. Busting at nighttime too, the dead of night, dark nights. Let's put the peak on that flag. It used to be the Ukrainian flag. There's so much stuff going on in the world, Oh, now I think it says, what does it say? Just Chatham? Chatham, Massachusetts, established 1712. Cape Cod is the oldest place in the country. This is the birthplace of the United States, not Plymouth. A lot of people don't know that too, but that's another story time. That's a long one. That's going to be a long one. It's probably not going to be that popular with a lot of people, but it's the truth of what really went down and how they ended up in Plymouth. And the crazy thing about that, well, actually, I'll save it for story time. Love y'all.